It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's sourdough. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you were here in person because the bread I made today is exceptional. But it'll just have to go to Rainn Wilson. That's right, the great actor Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, and a zillion other things. Star Trek, movies, television shows, even Gargamel. He is a great guy. I've known him for a long time. I can't wait to dive in with Rainn. He's such a good soul and a great artist and a good friend, and he's just going to have to eat the special bread. I would like to thank the good people at BetterHelp. BetterHelp. Thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp. They're customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. Listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/Papa, P-A-P-A. That's BetterHelp.com/Papa. A great service that gives you a helping hand in this difficult and complicated life. So I'm very excited to come home off the road. I've been running like crazy. I've been doing a ton of shows everywhere. I think for like American Airlines, you need like 250,000 miles for your elite status for the year. And here we are in the beginning of May, and I'm like 2,000 miles away. So that shows you how much time I've been spending in the air, moving around. The shows have been amazing, and the bread profile is hilarious. I was on an American Airlines flight. The flight attendant came up to me and asked me, was the bread okay? Just want to make sure, because I know that you know your way around bread. I was in Long Island, and Jim Serpico, he who started that bread company, Side Hustle, I don't know if you remember that episode, about a year ago probably. He came with all of his bread and brought it to me. Then I flew off to San Francisco. This is all in the last week. Then went off to San Francisco for one night, not even a night. I went in, did the gig, and flew home to New York the same day. And as soon as I landed there, I went over to go do the gig, and I was presented with more bread from the Cupertino area. From people who know that we love bread over there. So the bread thing has spread, and the roots are deep. And I have to say, what could be better? What could be better than just getting bread all along the way of your travels? Most of it I was not suspicious of. I'm not going to eat everything that's given to me. I will take a bite probably of most things, unless it's really sketch or anonymous. But for the most part, I can feel that the love for this podcast and the love of sitting down and entertaining our guests has really taken hold. And for that, I thank all of you. And we are working up some way to get this ability for you to be able to partake and break bread with us. So stand by for that. Today, I want to jump right in because this is going to be a big, healthy serving of Rainn Wilson. Rainn and I became friends very early. Before The Office, he did a movie with Rob Zombie, The House of a Thousand Corpses. And I had a mutual friend in that production, Jen Jostin, and that's where our first introduction happened. I'm going to hold off on the rest of that story for when I talk to Rainn, because it's very interesting. It was right on the edge of going into The Office, and it's a very interesting story that you'll want to hear. The great thing about Rainn, and I will reiterate this when I'm talking to him, when you look at his resume, he had a bunch of stuff before The Office. Then he does The Office, of course, for this big run with such an iconic character. and then a ton of stuff after. Like, this is not someone who was pigeonholed and ended up just doing one or two things. And I really believe it's because at his core, he is a thoughtful actor who's always exploring and digging deeper and enjoying the ride. And I think that creates a desire in directors and producers of including him in these productions, because you're not just getting that guy from that thing, you're getting Rainn Wilson. So now enjoy the conversation with Rainn Wilson.
This is crazy because there's no one here. It's just you and me in this
I know.
soundstage.
Yeah, it's pretty magical. And I baked you this bread. I was on the road,
beautiful.
so I had to bake it and then freeze it before it was completely done, and then flew in last night and then took it out and
And you heated it up?
heated it for like 200 for like a little bit more, and now you're good to go.
Wow.
Get a nice serrated knife and some butter and enjoy.
Gorgeous. And you said that it really just, you used to, it's breaking bread with Tom Papa. You probably tried breaking bread and then had listeners be like, fuck you, don't eat on the microphone, right?
Stop chewing.
Yeah, they really hate it, don't they?
They do hate it, which I don't understand. I like when I hear people chewing. Oh, no. Oh, there you go. How's that flavor?
That is really...
Rainn just took a big bite right out of the center of the... You're the first one to do that, by the way.
It's very good.
It should be. Yeah.
It's nutty and weedy and...
Made with love. Because I haven't
taste
seen
the
you
love.
in quite some time.
I taste the love.
Yeah, good. Good.
I just wanted to wake people up, and I want to get a bunch of nasty comments because
And that's not bad chewing. That bread is actually okay to chew, I guess. It's like when you get something crunchy, that's when people really go nuts.
it's moist, it's delicious, it's yeasty, it's really good.
Give it to your family. Make some toast.
It's got like a little bit of char, but I don't mean that in a derogatory bread way.
No, I try and get that. I try and get it almost overcooked for the outside. And the good thing about this bread, it starts to the sugars start to break down on its own.
Okay.
And it'll improve like over the next day.
So I should leave it out for the next month then.
Yeah. It depends how your family eats. It depends on what
Well,
they
see
do.
that now my chewing is done. So now we can start the
That's good.
podcast.
Yeah, and you're satisfied.
Yeah, I'm deeply satisfied. Thank you for the bread.
Good.
I
You're
brought
very
you
welcome.
avocados from my
I
avocado
know.
trees.
Those look like the perfect size because my daughter's always cutting open the big avocados and then leaving half.
Have you seen the half avocado saver things
No.
they sell on Amazon?
No.
It's the most incredible invention ever. It's
I
a
need
little
this.
plastic thing, and you put your avocado half with the big seed poking out
Yeah.
in there, and it's like a bra strap that goes over the back, and you put it in the fridge, and it stores it perfectly.
Really? What's
Yeah,
it
no-
made out of? It's
It's just a hard plastic thing, but the avocado acts like its own a sealer.
right.
And it's absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's
Yeah, what
amazing.
will they think of next?
How great that you're living in a place with an avocado tree.
We have a lot of trees. We have macadamia trees, and persimmons, which I don't care for so much. But
Yeah. What are the persimmons? Those are like the...
they're red, and they make your mouth go. We have a lot of lemons and oranges, tangerines, blood oranges.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That
Yeah.
sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's such a cool thing looking at your career because, and I want to. There's all the
that
all
wasn't
different
even a
places.
segue.
There's I know, but it was because of I coming
Because
from
you're
New
thinking
Jersey,
fruit trees?
coming from New Jersey and living amongst lemon trees and things. I still have this, and I know you're Seattle, but I still have this like I can't believe we have sunshine and palm trees. I still can't get over it as a grown man. But when I was looking at just your arc, you had this, and the reason I'm bringing you back to New York with me, with your early days of
Okay.
of thinking theater and like starting off acting and all that kind of stuff, and then coming out here. I have to explain my giant segue, but that's what I'm doing. What's so cool, and I actually said in the intro before you got here, was there's no question that even though you had this super iconic role, that you've worked so much after, because you came into this very thoughtful, very creative, and you are kind of on this, you seem, from what I know of you, and we never talked about like what's in your head for all this, but you seem very thoughtful and motivated by the good things. And I think that is why, unlike people that do have iconic roles, you just keep cranking and evolving, and you are so different from Dwight. From the time that's wrapped up, it's congratulations, and you should be living with avocado trees and persimmons, even though you don't like them.
Persimmons. Persimmons.
But am I right?
That's so kind.
Was that the way you kind of look at your art?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to address there. That's very kind. Thank you so much for the compliments. But I will say that, at risk of sounding pretentious, I come from the theater,
right,
Tom. But when you go to acting school in New York City in the theater,
you're trained. Your goal.
You're trained to transform into characters.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're going to do a Noel Coward farce tonight, or you're going to play a villain in a Shakespeare play next month, and then you're going to play a American realism, and then you're going to do a kabuki mask experimental theater piece, and your job as the actor is to transform into the various characters that you play.
Right.
And they're based on you, and they're grounded in who you are, but you're not just playing yourself all the time. Like Jerry Seinfeld plays himself. God bless him. He's great at it, and he should, because coming from the stand-up world. But it's just a very different. So I think the reason I'm saying all this is that you're right in that I played dozens and dozens of roles in the theater before I did any TV or film. And then I started doing TV and film, and I played a good dozen or dozen and a half roles before I got Dwight.
Right.
And I hope that the roles are different enough that that my transformation from Rainn Wilson into the character suits what is needed from that character.
Right.
It might sound obvious to some listeners, but to a lot of people, they're just flabbergasted when they meet me, and they're like, "You're not Dwight. You're not like him."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, in some ways I'm like him, and in tons of ways I'm not. Just like with all of the characters that I played. And then I've played a good dozen and a half, couple dozen characters since Dwight that I hope are different, drawn on me, etc. So
what was the one that you did? It was kind of a children's movie, like adventure movie. And
The Last Mimsy?
Yes,
maybe?
The Last Mimsy.
Yeah.
And I knew just from seeing that, because my kids were it was prime time for them to catch that film. And it was just like, oh yeah, he's going to work forever. Like coming off of that, and it was like, oh yeah, look, he's completely different. Because there are a lot of people that end up with those great roles that can't shake it off or can't go further.
Well, it's a struggle. I won't lie. It's a struggle. In terms of casting, I think there's still, by far the vast majority of people kind of making art and telling stories in Hollywood. When they think Rainn Wilson, they think Dwight Schrute. They go into a Target store and they see me on tea towels and mugs and keychains, and I'm really relegated to that character. And like, no, we'll get someone else. He's so it's been kind of a chore to kind of like try and challenge people to be like, hey, he's a transformational actor, and guess what? He can play other characters. He could play a villain, and he can play a serious dude, and he can play someone who's funny in an altogether different way than Dwight is funny, perhaps. So it is a challenge, but at the same time, I've had some great opportunities and roles all along. So
do you like Dwight?
But listen,
do you like Dwight?
I do very much.
That's
like
good.
Dwight.
You enjoy Dwight.
I absolutely enjoy Dwight.
That's good.
And my son,
I like hearing that.
My son is 17, and he only got into the office when he was about 16. And he put it off for a long time.
Yeah.
And I always used to kind of give him shit and be like, why don't you watch The Office? All your friends watch The Office. And he's like, finally he broke down. He's like, Dada, I want you to be my dad. I don't want you to be Dwight. And that was very sweet.
That is very sweet.
Very sweet. But,
Yeah.
So occasionally he'll be watching an episode and I'll come in and see some parts of it. I'm like, oh, that's good. It's good. It's so weird and funny and warped and true at the same time.
Right.
I'm very proud of the role and what we all did with that show.
So good. Can we talk for a minute, just for any listeners who hasn't heard me tell this story, of how I almost ruined your career?
Yeah. Please tell them the story.
I almost ruined your career.
Close. Yeah.
So,
You almost ruined Steve's.
and almost ruined Steve's, and yet not really. Well, it could have, but it was So we became familiar with each other through Rob Zombie and House of a Thousand Corpses and Jen Jostin, and that's where we kind of were all mutual friends. And when I started casting this pilot that they came and got me off of Conan, and they're like, do you have an idea for TV? I'm like, yeah, kind of. And I had this role, and I asked Rainn to come in to read for it. Me and Greg Malins were making this show, and we loved you so much. And Jen's like, you've got to check out Rainn. And it was like, oh, that finally we found the guy that can play this character. And we brought you in to test for network, which is the final round, and it didn't go. It didn't get it. And then we begged them and fought with them to bring you back a second time. Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
And we brought you back a second time.
Andy Ackerman was directing.
Right,
Yep.
right. And for whatever reason, whoever was making the decisions didn't go for it. At the same time, so we were crestfallen. We're just like, I can't believe we don't get to use Rainn. And then a new president comes into the company, and after we shot the pilot without you, and they're starting to make The Office in the background. And they came to us and said, before The Office had launched or was even put together, we have this guy in a deal, Steve Carell. We want the new president of the network. Kevin Riley came in and said, we saw your pilot. We had already shot it. We like it. He hated it. And he's like, but what if we put Steve Carell in it? We have a deal with him. He's funny. He'll make your show. And we were like, Steve's the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Let's put Steve in it. And we put Steve Carell. All of a sudden, he was like my boss. It was like he was doing The Office. It was like he was auditioning for The Office on our show.
But it was much broader. I remember him on that show.
Much broader. Yeah.
Did he have an accent on the show or something? Was he like? No. I remember him doing some very like.
Yeah. I don't remember. And so I tried to get you, and then they put Steve on us, but we were like, okay, let's take Steve because he's amazing. And the head of the network just did not like our show, and they start putting together The Office. And behind the scenes, they're taking Steve and they're going to put him in The Office. And they saw him running our show as the boss, which I didn't even want. I was all of a sudden, I was working in an office, which wasn't what our show was about at all. But we were just trying to keep it afloat and make this new president happy.
Yeah.
And while we were filming, they gave Steve the lead in The Office. And we're like, huh.
What does that mean for us?
What does that mean for our show?
Yeah.
And it all worked out just fine, but it was like, it really is kind of funny that I wanted you so badly, and then we had Steve, and then you guys went off into outer space.
And then, yeah.
And thank God, because it's such a beloved show, even by myself, and the culture. It's like that. If you ever feel like things are happening for a reason, it's like we all needed that show. We all really wanted that show. We were figuring shit out.
That's very generous of you, Tom. You could be very jaded and bitter about it. Oh, those fuckers stole Steve from
No, even when it was happening, I was like,
I remember I did not audition very well for your show. I was nervous and I couldn't. It took me the longest time. It was a multi-camera sitcom,
right?
And I didn't understand how to do that,
right?
Like if we're having this conversation right now, but then there's an audience watching, and
you're leaning into it.
You kind of want to bring it up for the audience, but then you lose sight of like the scene here. It's a weird style, you know?
It is, yeah, for sure.
I was more suited to The Office, where it's like we forget the cameras are there and we're just kind of in the scene.
Yeah.
So I struggled with the also the telling of jokes. And I love multi-camera sitcoms. So it was really fun for me because the last couple of years I did this recurring character on Mom with Alice and Janney, and that was so I got to kind of like work on what it's like doing a.
How did you like it?
It was great.
Yeah.
It took some getting used to. You know, a real audience laughing and trying to get through a whole scene. You know, because you're performing the scene like in the theater for an audience. It's tricky.
A big thank you to our friends at BetterHelp. Look, this world, as I said, is complicated. Everybody, especially right now, I can tell you, just traveling around and having people come up after my shows, and people are so grateful to be getting out of the house and having some laughs and trying to feel normal. And these are people who, you could tell just from their backstories, they weren't really struggling. I mean, some were to bigger degrees, but I think all of us have been challenged. All of us over the last 2 years had your regular life with all of its stresses and all of its complications, and you just had this tsunami of anxiety thrown on top of all of us. And it's not just the pandemic, it's also the inflation, and it's also the world news. It's the crime. There's a lot of things playing around in the background of our everyday life, which is already complicated and annoying, just the day-to-day stuff. And then you have this background of very big events happening all the time. Sometimes you just need to be able to reach out and talk to someone beyond your friends and family, just someone who's just there, just for the one-sided aspect, not completely one-sided, but when you're with a friend, you got to have a little back and forth. With a therapist, you can actually just get your stuff out and get some great advice. And the people at BetterHelp have made it very easy. Customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. So give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Breaking Bread listeners get 10% off first month at betterhelp.com/papa. That's BetterHelp.com/papa. They have a resource for you that makes it very easy to come in, line up for the person you want to talk to, and just get it all out and feel better. BetterHelp.com. If I didn't have stand-up, it would have been a different ending to the story. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been like, I would have carried, but
you just went back out on the road. And
I knew it was going to be okay. Like, literally a month after the show was done, you know, it dragged on for a couple of years and through the summer and all this kind of stuff. But literally a month after, I was walking back into the same building to go do a spot, to do stand-up on The Tonight Show. And I was like, oh, I have control over this part of the universe.
Yeah.
I can always have this and do this kind of a thing. And to be frank, like, I wasn't planning on doing, they came and got me off of a Conan set. I was kind of naive. I was like, oh, it'll happen a bunch of times. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't, it was just kind of, I was like a little leaf on a river.
That was an interesting time where kind of, I don't mean to denigrate you in any way, but they would kind of like, with the success of Seinfeld and Home Improvement and Everyone Loves
Roseanne
Raymond and Roseanne, like, they were like, let's find that next stand-up. Just haul in the stand-ups. It was
totally.
I did so many pilots as like the second fiddle to the stand-up comic.
Right.
And tested for so many pilots.
Yeah.
And then that all kind of fell apart shortly thereafter, around 2006 or something. They kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare that they do it nowadays.
And back to the multi-camera thing, it was like, that was suited for a stand-up, to know the audience and play that. They could lean into that. And once that genre started to go away, I mean, Mom and everything that that he's doing over there, that Chuck's doing, he's like, that's like the only spot really that's successfully doing it anymore, which is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Like we all grew up on that.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up All in the Family and Bob Newhart and Cheers and all of those. It was what America did. We sat down at night and watched those multi-camera sitcoms.
I saw Gilligan's Island. I was in a hotel and Gilligan's Island was on. I was like, this is so funny to watch. And I mean, that's not shot in front of an audience.
Yeah.
But with a laugh track.
Right.
So you're like on the island in these things, and there's these laughs.
People laughing.
Yeah. But I think that was part of the magic of your show and Modern Family at the same time. You had people steering the ship, and I'm sure it's a joint effort by the actors and everybody. Like you're playing for you're trusting each other that all this stuff is funny because there's no audience. And other people have tried to pull it off and failed. A lot of them have failed because they don't really know what's funny. You guys knew what funny was. Did you feel that when you were making it? Were you playing it?
Yeah. You know, what The Office did is so one of the problems with multi-camera sitcoms is there's only a couple ways to get a laugh, right?
Yeah.
There's a joke, which is usually a hard joke, or like a big piece of physical comedy that's kind of that needs a setup. And those are the two ways that you get laughs. But on The Office, there's a number of ways to get a laugh.
Right.
So that was very freeing. It was like the awkward pause gets a laugh.
Right.
The look to the camera can get a laugh. You know, the joke can get a laugh, but the kind of like the general awkwardness of office life, could get a, so it was a bigger sandbox to play in. And I remember when Greg Daniels was creating the show and I sat down with him, he said, I see comedy as like a steamship, going across the North Atlantic. Like, I just want to take it 1 or 2 degrees in the right direction. You can't steer a steamship like this. It's like, comedy's not working very well right now. I want to just steer it 1 or 2 degrees in the right direction. And I really think he did that.
As the whole genre, you mean? Just
television comedy.
Wow,
yeah.
interesting.
And I think The Office did that. It certainly influenced Modern Family, but 100%. Even like What We Do in the Shadows and but even like Baskets and some of the odder shows out there. He achieved what he set out to do.
He really did.
Yeah.
What a cool thing. So that ride was how long?
9 years, 9.5 years.
9.5. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. All those, Seinfeld was 9. A lot of them go that way.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. When you were back to New York, if we can just go back there for a second, when you were starting and like, I'm going for theater, were you studying or were you just going for it?
Yeah, I studied. I went to NYU to their acting program, and I really just loved the theater. And I thought that, my best scenario for me was like, I'll join a theater company, like the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. or the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. And I'll get a yearly paycheck. I'll make $70,000 a year as an actor. Maybe I'll do some voiceovers or an odd commercial here or there, but that was really what I thought my life was. That's the life I pursued for a long time. And I remember, it's a funny story. The actor Jeffrey Wright. So he's in Westworld and he's been in a ton of stuff. We did a theater tour together, and we got back after like 6 months on the road, super long time. Off the bus, pulling our luggage off. And we went into the offices of the theater company, got our mail, right? Kind of getting that mail that stacks up. And I was like, I looked at my bank statement and I was like, I was hoping to have saved twice the amount that I saved. I had like $2,000 in the bank and I was like, oh shit. And Jeffrey had done 3 days on a Harrison Ford movie, like the year before or something. We got in, we're getting our mail, and he opened it and he started hooting and hollering. He's like, whoa, my God, yeah, this is fucking awesome. And he had a residual check from his 3 days on the Harrison Ford movie for like $5,000. And I looked at the check and my jaw dropped, and And that was in my head. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No. I need to do TV and film. If I ever want to own a house, if I ever want to pay off student loans.
God.
That's when it really, the penny dropped.
Yeah. It's so hard. That's why I love watching the Tony Awards more than anything else. They're so, you have to love the theater if you're going to be in that world. And it means when they win, their speeches, like you'll get one out of the Oscars or the Emmys. It's like heartfelt from the night.
Yeah.
Those, it's just like the love for what they're doing. And we all know how we're sacrificing to do it.
Yeah.
It's so, what about going back? Have you gone back? And
I haven't gone back to New York. I did a play at the Geffen about 5 years ago. And then about 3 years ago, I did a play at Steppenwolf in Chicago.
Ooh, nice.
Which was great. And one of my plans is, my son graduates from high school and I'll have a little more free time and go to New York and do a play, definitely.
Yeah.
Or a couple plays.
Yeah. So, it was pretty cool. I was reading in the Times the other day about there's like three dark comedies that are on Broadway right now. And it was like, oh, maybe this is like, because for a while it was just SpongeBob and Lion King. And it was like, and now they have like these smart comedies coming out. And it was like, maybe this pause will be good for the theater, like to bring that kind of stuff. Unless you want to do SpongeBob, I don't mean to cast you.
I would like to, what's his friend, the starfish, Philip? I don't know. Maybe there's a role for me.
Yeah.
If you're watching, producers of SpongeBob.
He would be a good SpongeBob. Yeah, but once it went that and then like Beetlejuice, it just got a little...
And there's so many adaptations of movies and turned into musicals. And that's not so interested in that, but
yeah. Are you still religious?
I am, yeah.
You are? And it's pronounced Baha'i?
Baha'i, yeah.
Baha'i.
It's a comedy killer, Tom.
I don't mind killing comedy.
You're in the middle of your podcast. We're going to kill comedy.
I almost killed you. I almost killed your career. I could kill this podcast right now. I am fearless.
I would have been so fun. I would have done the Tom Papa show, and then I would have done some. If it wasn't The Office, I would have done something else. I would have had a fine career, but I would not have been Dwight Schrute.
No, I know. Which is come on. Baha'i.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we talk about Baha'i?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about Baha'i.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about Baha'i, but what I do know, it's kind of like a Middle Eastern Unitarian, where you're kind of open to everybody.
That's perfect.
Is that
I've
right?
never heard that before, but Middle Eastern Unitarian is
that
kind of
close?
perfect. Yeah, it's kind of perfect. Yeah.
So if they're embracing Jesus and Muhammad and whatever other religious stories and things, so when did it start? It
started in the 19th century, mid 1800s in Iran, and the founder of it, who was a spiritual teacher who went by the title Baha'u'llah, whose name means the glory of God. Baha'u'llah was not very popular in the Muslim world for professing that he had new messages from God, that he had a spiritual plan for humanity that included like the equality of women and men, the harmony of science and religion, the elimination of racial prejudice. These were not popular concepts at that time. And so he spent his whole life being tortured, banished, imprisoned, etc. So that's mid 1800s.
Mid 1800s
is when it started. Yeah.
And is he considered like a prophet? Like
yeah. So Baha'is believe there's one God, and that this God educates humanity spiritually by sending down divine teachers every 500 or 1,000 years or so. Like Abraham and Krishna and Moses and the Buddha and Jesus, Muhammad. And Baha'is believe that now Baha'u'llah is the most recent of these teachers. But they all are teaching essentially the same faith. When you boil it down. Now you can look at differences. There's a lot of different differences because they came at different places at different times with different needs of the people in the area. But there are universals that run through every religious practice that kind of show that they're from one divine source.
I like this.
So as a
'cause that's
Baha'i, we read the Bible,
uh-huh.
we revere Jesus, we read the Quran, we read the Buddha,
Right.
we pray and meditate using all the world's religions.
Right. Right. Yeah, because the Joseph Campbell, like the study of myth and religion, and the most striking thing, which the cynical take on it is, all these religions, they all are playing off the same stories. They're all the same stuff, which means that there's nothing to any of them.
Yep.
What you're describing is the opposite.
Right.
Yes, they are all similar, but we're all universally going towards the same truth, trying to figure out whatever this thing is.
Yeah. Yeah, if God wants humanity to mature spiritually, which is its plan, his plan, her plan, this is how God has chosen to do that, by sending these spiritual teachers down.
Right.
And let's look at the world right now. What does humanity need more than anything else? It's spiritual maturity. We need to grow up spiritually. We're growing up. You know, we have our, you know, I have my phone that I can call a cab or listen to any song that's ever been created. And, you know, technologically we're maturing.
Yeah.
But spiritually, on every level, look at what's happening with, the partisanship in America, the war in the Ukraine, racism, so many difficult issues that require consultation and community and connection, and not division and war and selfishness.
Right. It's that is a troubling spot where we are locally, like in this country, is that we're almost like we're progressing, but by progressing, we're tearing down every single institution that we had. So people aren't going to church. They're not taking care of that part of their life that people didn't really, destroy their own religions because intellect was telling them that it probably had holes in it. You still just went to church, just kind of like what you did, but like we don't have those structures anymore. And it feels like, I think that is adding to this feeling of everyone being so adrift.
Yeah.
So adrift at a time. This is a kind of a strange thing. I was reading about what Biden's up against. He has the energy crisis from the 70s. He has the Cold War from the 50s.
Oh yeah.
He's got
inflation
from the 70s. He's got all of the big ones from the last decades all at once. Oh, and a crime from the 70s.
Sure. Not to mention a global pandemic too.
Yeah, the global pandemic
from the 1910s, 20s, whenever the Spanish flu was
happening at the same time. It's like, God. And so as we're all going through that and trying to figure out, like, how are we going to be okay? Where's our faith? Where's something to hang on to? It's like, religion, for all of its flaws, is valuable to give you.
I love hearing you say that, because I'm writing a book about this right now. It's called Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. It has a little humor in it, but it is really 90% pretty serious. And it's about exactly this topic, about why we need a spiritual revolution. And listen, I completely understand why people have left organized religion in droves. Like, there's been so much corruption and judgment, and look at what happened in the Catholic Church, and there's hypocrisy, and so I get it. And a lot of people, even hearing this probably right now, are just recoiling because they're like, fuck that, I don't want to be a part of any religion.
Right.
Look at all the hate it's brought to the world and all the damage it's done, and et cetera. And so I completely empathize and understand with that. But it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit.
Yeah.
So what does a religious practice give you, both on a personal level and on a societal level? A religious practice gives me personally greater peace, calm, kind of like peace with my anxiety, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
It also gives me focus toward, stuff that isn't just about satisfying me all the time, like service to others and helping folks, and in the media telling positive stories or attempting to. And on a societal level, it gives you community, gives a kind of a commonality of purpose.
Yeah.
Even, dare I say it, I hate to use these words, but morality, but even a shared sense of ethics and morality that are really going down the drain right now. We see in politics, like people are doing and saying things to each other that, in the 1970s, people would be like, you can't do that.
Right.
People don't do that. You don't call each other names on the floor of Congress, and you don't
Swear.
Yeah, you don't swear at people, and
Yeah.
you don't backstab in that way. And it's not like politics was this magical fairyland of trust and love back in the day, but there was certain proprietary kind of
There was decorum.
Yeah. So religion, for lack of a better word, a faith community, a devotional, a discipline that involves building community. It met a lot of our needs and meets a lot of our needs as human beings on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking lately that we're living in a time where we're eliminating all boundaries. There's no boundaries. There's no boundaries in what you
rules.
say, how you act, what you do, and it's like, it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah.
And some of it, you can self-impose boundaries on you. Like, we don't swear around the house. We don't, we have all these little things that we do. Like, we have these boundaries and stuff, but it's kind of, my grandmother, my little Nana, was Catholic. And she just bustled along, World War II and the Depression, and we went through all of it. And both grandmothers, and just went to church. They went to church. And when there were stories of the horrible things that the Catholic Church was doing, it was like, oh boy, yeah, I know, but I'm going to church. Like, she just kept going to church. You know what I mean? And I remember sitting with my sister at a baptism, and she's like, I got to get out of here. We were both raised that way. And she's like, I got to get out. I'm like, just take the good parts. Just take the good part. Yeah. She goes, do you hear what they're saying right now about this? I don't know. It was very patriarchal and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, no, I don't really hear what they're saying right now. I'm just kind of like being here. I like the organ. I like the stained glass. I like that I can think here in a way that I can't think anywhere else in the world. Like, do we have to take all the problem? Like, once you put it through mankind, and they're in charge,
it gets corrupted.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the Baha'i mythology, is that religion needs refreshing. We update our software on our phone. Our operating system on our Apple computers goes from, Yosemite to Cougar to, Tiger Mountain or whatever. But we don't think of religion in the same way, but it needs a kind of updating and refreshing. So,
is there a way to do it now? Like, people always yearn for it. People are always yearning for something from the spiritual side of them to be satisfied. But in the absence of religion, everybody, they're doing these things and trying this different stuff. But it's hard if you don't have like a set place to go and do. It's like it's hard to kind of dial it in. When you said, is meditation part of it also?
It's certainly important in the Baha'i faith, as it is in kind of every religious practice, but it's an important daily part of my practice.
Right.
So I meditate.
But that is part of the faith. Like, I do TM. I've been doing TM for a long time.
TM's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so great. And it's so funny because whenever I talk about TM, like, people are like, are you trying to like convert me? What are you in a cult?
That's a tough thing about talking about religion, and I used to feel bad about it because people tried to convert people for so long that if you talk about it at all or bring it up, people just immediately get that they're going to try and convert me. But I just like talking about spiritual topics. I just love I love the study of it. I love thinking about it. I like reading books about it, and
it's great.
Yeah, but meditation practice is part of the Baha'i faith. It's not kind of regimented. It's not like thou shalt meditate every day or whatever, but there's tons of writings about daily prayer and meditation. So,
prayer being different from meditation.
Prayer being different from meditation because meditation really is listening, and prayer is asking,
Right.
reaching out to something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem with losing God. And God's a tricky conversation and a complicated one. And
Sure.
I don't want to, piss people off right now, but when you lose God, you lose the concept that there's something greater or bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good for our egos, both individually and collectively, because we're ego-driven creatures. So
Yeah.
I think that's been one of the problems as well.
Yeah.
There is a humility about being in front of the universe and saying, thy will, not mine, be done,
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because there's the meditation is, you're kind of absent of a God because you're absent of thought, really. You're just, and and then at night I'll pray like I did when I was 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's a totally different thing.
Right,
It's
right.
A completely different.
But do you
different
find that
space.
it's kind of a yin yang kind of dance between the two? The prayer comes in when you're meditating, and the meditation comes in when you're praying, and they feed each other, kind of.
I feel like we're in similar rooms.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're in similar rooms. But yeah, I think being raised Catholic, prayer is like, it's different. Meditating, I feel like TM, you're just kind of sinking below the surface and diffusing for a while. Where where Catholic prayer is, please forgive me for what a piece of garbage I am. And can you give me a new bike?
Do any jokes come to you in your meditation practice?
No. But what is interesting is it's changed my presence on stage. I don't push as much as, and this has just happened to observe it after time. It's that being, that just being present kind of a thing is enough that meditation gives you. That. Why, do you have ideas pop up when you meditate?
Sometimes, but I remember interviewing David Lynch once back in the day, and he's such an active meditator.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like the
big idea.
The ideas, and he would like journal after his meditation, like images that he saw and thoughts that he had, and like pictures and ideas, snatches of dialogue. And I think he had mentioned that there were some areas from some of his films that some moments that came up from meditation, because you're going so deep into the subconscious.
Yeah.
It's so
he's pretty
mysterious.
great to listen to. He's also distracting because he talks about going under in TM in search of this blissful state that you're always trying, and that just trying to get to a state is kind of the opposite of what you're doing. Like, I understand he's just describing it, but when it gets in my head, I'm like, am I blissful yet? Am I blissful? You know what I mean? What is he talking about? And there are times, when you pop out and you're like, you feel like you were deeper than other times.
Yeah.
It's all valuable, even when your head is busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, just hearing him talk about it is inspirational and distracting, I would say.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of people? Are there a lot of Baha'i?
No, there's like 5 million around the world.
Yeah.
It's the second most widespread of the world's religions. So there's like Baha'is everywhere. You go to Samoa or Mongolia, and there's Baha'is there.
Are there churches with priests?
There's no clergy in the Baha'i faith. So it's all
text.
It's all kind of the inmates running the asylum. It's a democratically elected kind of religion. So there's little assemblies of people that govern the affairs of a city or a town or a country. But no one has any station above anyone else, or is interpreting holy texts better or above anyone else.
Oh. It sounds kind of perfect.
It's cool.
Were you raised that way?
I was raised Baha'i. My parents were Baha'i. A lot of people became Baha'is in the late 60s, early 70s in America, because that was a time when people were so spiritually searching.
Yeah.
Which is something that I really miss in this day and age. That I was born in 66, so I remember the early 70s enough, like 73, 74. I remember that there were people fiercely having spiritual discussions. And the Beatles went to meet the Maharishi, and
Maharishi,
and Cat Stevens became a Muslim, and you know, even Steve Jobs was on a Buddhist monastery, and
Dylan
Dylan
had those albums,
and he went Jewish and then hardcore born again. But people were exploring religious faith and looking for something new and for answers, and had questions, and didn't have answers necessarily, but it was an exciting time. So that's when my parents became Baha'i, and a lot of people became Baha'is at that time. But then I left it pretty hardcore when I went to acting school in New York. And,
you did?
Yeah.
I
didn't want morality, you know.
When you were in New York as a young actor?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'll ruin the good time
I was
you're
having sex with my girlfriend. I didn't want to have to feel bad, and I wanted to kind of party and get away from my parents and their whole shtick and stuff. So
right.
But an interesting thing happened, which was that I was really unhappy, even though I became a professional actor and I was working. I wasn't making much money, but I was working, and this was beyond my wildest dreams as a suburban Seattle kid. But I was really unhappy, and I had, what we'd call now mental health issues, which no one talked about like mental health back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So
you're just losing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was losing it, and I was anxious and having anxiety attacks, and I was, I would get depressed a lot. I had a lot of addiction issues, and started therapy, but I couldn't really get into it. I certainly couldn't afford it. And that's when it started. I started thinking about maybe I did throw the baby out with the bathwater when I abandoned this. And so I checked out other religions and read spiritual texts and books, and thought about it long and hard, and kind of slowly came back. By the time I moved to LA, I was kind of back being a Baha'i around the year 2000.
Right. Okay. Cool. Is your family, your wife, your kid?
My wife's a Baha'i. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That sounds great.
My kid's been raised Baha'i, but we'll see what happens.
And he's 17, so he's about to get rid of it all and go enjoy himself and come back.
Probably. Who knows? We all have our journeys, So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Thank you for sharing that, because it's it's always on my mind too. And I have one daughter. I have two kids, and my youngest was kind of searching since she was little, and I brought her to Catholic church and stuff, and then we went to a Christian church. Actually, the church where you guys shot, I think the wedding for The Office
in Sherman Oaks over there?
In Studio City on Colfax, that church, that little church.
That's a sweet little church.
Yeah, sweet little church. Yeah. And we went there, and they're also Christian with guitars and nice, and they pass around the bread and do all the thing. And we left, and she was like, "I like that one," and I was like, "That wasn't even close to church." Where is the old guy yelling at us and making us feel shitty about ourselves? I need that Catholic, rage. And she's like, "No, it should feel good." I'm like, "I don't think so." It's so funny. So another book. That's great. I didn't realize that you had written. Was it Bassoon?
The Bassoon King.
The Bassoon King.
Yeah, that's a comedic memoir of my life, but it has a good amount of the spiritual story in there. I tried to balance it, because a lot of people they want to hear funny stories about The Office.
Right.
And I'm happy to provide that. But I did want to talk about, because it's part of my journey, so I do lay it in there. But
that's
I wrote
good.
that, and then I wrote a book called Soul Pancake: Chew on Life's Big Questions, which was based on a digital media company I started with some friends called Soul Pancake. That was all about philosophy and spirituality, psychology, and the arts, and making uplifting video content.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was around for a while, 10 years or so.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Are you still doing it?
We sold the company to Participant Media, and so they kind of got folded into what Participant is doing, because they had a very similar kind of mission, but as a film company.
Right.
So, a lot of the Soul Pancake team is still there now, working for Participant.
Right. That sounds close to a regular job, Rainn.
It was kind of that way, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of bowed out to that. Yeah. No, I stepped away.
Fun for a bit, but how long are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're writing this next book. Do you still play the bassoon?
I do kind of.
Yeah.
People were just doing the weirdest things during the pandemic, and one of the things I did was like, I bought a bassoon. But people are like, I'm going to take up woodworking.
Yep.
I'm going to do ceramics. Like Seth Rogen posts like all of
His clay pots.
his pots and stuff, which is great. I love it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to learn the bassoon again. So I got a bassoon. And
Nice.
I don't play it a ton, but I can pick it up and noodle away on it.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
Yeah.
I just watched this great documentary on this last flight I was on called The Conductor about, I'm going to mess up her name, but her first name is Marin, Marin. I think Aliso or Alippo or something like that. She was the first female conductor of a major orchestra.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, she's still going. But she just was coming up when there were no women conductors.
Wow.
And you're just told, no, you can't, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And she just kept chugging and started leading these great orchestras, and did one in Brazil, took like this ramshackle orchestra and just all with good
Whipped it into
intention.
shape. Yeah,
all
yeah.
of like let's just lift people up with music and lift children up with music. And she just, this little thing, and just kept plugging away. And then she's like in Vienna, like taking
that's
care of that.
awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
It really is so good.
Oh.
I don't know if there was any, there were no really like breakout interviews with the bassoon players. You might not like it.
Yeah. Forget it.
Yeah. How do you play the bassoon by yourself? You just kind of like hang, and is it like a nice solo instrument?
You just go.
It's
Something
pretty
like that.
cool.
Yeah.
Do you listen to jazz?
Not really.
No.
Yeah.
Classical?
Not really. No.
Rock?
Yeah, like indie rock and
Yeah.
experimental rock and
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you like growing up in Seattle?
I did like growing up in Seattle. At the time, I didn't know if I did. I think wherever we grow up, I don't think anyone is like in the middle of growing up going, like, this is awesome. Maybe some people are,
Yeah.
but when I look back on it, it was, it was just so innocent and dorky, and
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons games that would go from Friday night till Sunday afternoon, and
So great.
marching band, and
Yeah.
just running around riding bikes in cul-de-sacs and throwing
Yeah.
pine cones at each other and drinking Slurpees, and
best.
it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's a good thing. And your wife from up there?
She's from Portland. Yeah,
I'm from Portland.
We met at the University of Washington in Seattle.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my daughter was looking at that school. Did you
Oh,
like going to
wow.
that school?
You have college age kids now.
Oh my God, Rainn, I have one that's
that's
going to be a
right.
junior in college.
Oh my God.
And another one that's going to be a senior.
I
in
didn't
high
do
school.
the math, but I remember when you had little kids. But of course,
Yeah.
that was the early 2000s.
Now they're
so-
people. Just,
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're there, 17.
Yeah.
You're right there too.
Yeah, UW, University of Washington, is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It's funny because when we went on a tour there, and it was this gorgeous day, and those trees in the quad were just blooming, and
Yeah.
the sun was shining, and they took everybody into the theater and really adamantly began the speech with, "Let us be clear. This is not what the school looks like most of the time. We do not have sunshine and
Right,
flowers here.
Yeah.
So if you think this is what you're going to get when you come here,
Yeah.
think again."
A lot of gray skies, a lot of drizzle. Yeah.
I'm going to shoot my next special in Seattle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Where at? The Moore?
Neptune.
Oh, the Neptune.
Yeah.
Yeah, on 45th.
Yeah. I just like it. They're just it's got enough gray skies where the people are cool.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
get it, and they're smart, and
That's great.
Yeah, they just kind of love that kind of thing.
That's great.
Do you have family up there still?
I do. My stepmom lives in West Seattle. That's about it. I think I
Yeah.
have a few cousins here or there, but yeah.
So how do you field offers now? Like, do you have to audition, or do the people just send you stuff and you get to pick what you want to do? Are you going to emerge into a Bill Murray-esque thing where they don't know how to find you?
They just
and
get an
they've gotta-
800 number?
Yeah, and they have to get a script to a golf course or.
That's funny. No, man. I'm still audition sometimes. Sometimes I get offers. Sometimes the phone doesn't ring for months.
Right.
So I don't know. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this job that I'm just about to undertake, which is called the Geography of Bliss. And I'm going to do my first hosting gig where I go around the world. I'm kind of like the Anthony Bourdain of happiness.
Oh.
So it's going around the world discovering like why are people happier in some places than others?
That's great.
What works about certain cultures that doesn't work about others? What uplifts us? What creates greater well-being? You know? But with quirky comedy along the way.
Yeah,
So,
with your voice. That'll be great.
So
wow, that's great.
yeah, we're going to like Iceland. The first trip is Iceland, which is the happiest.
They're the happiest, right?
Right. And then Bulgaria, which is the unhappiest.
Oh boy, yeah.
So
maybe they should just change the name. It's hard to even say that with a smile.
Bulgaria. Yeah, they should call it like Flappy Town or something. It just
Yeah, like Funsville.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. Why is Iceland so happy?
Well, there's a number of reasons that the Scandinavian countries are happy. I mean, part of it is because they're so well taken care of. They've got health care,
Right.
they've got education, they've got paternity and maternity leaves.
Right.
And, there's, that social net is so strong. They don't mind paying 40, 50% in taxes because so many things are taken care of there.
Right.
And I think there's a sense of community. I think people, they're not so individualistic, kind of like, I do think there's something about the American ethos of like, live free or die and don't tread on me. That's kind of like, it's me.
It's me,
by, for myself. But there it's kind of more communal. Like, but I don't have all the answers on that yet. We're just starting to get the trips planned out and the casting going.
Wow.
And so
That's
we're going to be
great.
speaking to experts along the way and
So cool.
seeing what works,
That's a great
They
idea.
bathe together in Iceland a lot.
Oh.
Naked.
Naked bathing?
I think they're asking me to do some naked bathing while I'm in Iceland.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Come on. Who are we trying to impress at this age?
Please.
Yeah, please. I really was thinking that the other day. I was in New York in a hotel, and there's like a apartment like right across the street, and I could see them. I'm sure they could see me, and I'm getting ready. And at first, I was like, "Oh, I'm naked." I'm like, "Have at it."
Yeah. Dig in. Enjoy, folks. This is what you have to look forward to right here.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great project.
Yeah.
How long will it take you out on the road for?
It's just 3 2-week trips.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. And then we'll do 6 episodes for Peacock. It'll come out sometime next year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I'm really
Back to
excited.
bliss. Back to the David Lynch bliss.
Being consciousness bliss.
Yeah.
Is the saying from the Hindu Vedas.
Yeah.
Being, we are alive. Consciousness, we are aware. And then we seek kind of to exist in bliss, knowing those previous 2 things.
It's so evasive, and it's so hard when you get close to brushing up against it to hold on to. You can't. That's why it's like, that's why must be why they call it a practice. Like any of this stuff is a practice. Like,
yeah, it's
you
interesting.
have to constantly.
Because there's so much stuff about happiness. And I
Yeah.
really struggle with the word happiness because it's so ephemeral. And I forget what the word is, but it is a result of other circumstances. It's not, you can't just make yourself be happy. It's like,
Right.
okay, I'm going to be happy now. I'm going to be happy. Like, it's like, we're having a nice conversation and we're laughing, and all of a sudden you go, wow, I'm really happy. But then I could come back next week and we could laugh and have a conversation, and I could be like, I feel like shit,
Yeah.
So chasing happiness, and again, this has to do with the kind of some of the core ethos that the United States specifically is based on: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're pursuing something that's not pursuable. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of well-being.
Contentment.
Contentment. Yeah, great. Good word.
Yeah.
So those are more attainable.
Right.
No, that's not to say there aren't things you can do to increase your happiness.
Right. And pursuing it may, you may not get it and be able to hold on to it forever. But
And
if you're heading that direction,
pursuing it from an American tradition is pursuing material success.
yeah, that's the
So
thing.
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means the pursuit
Yeah.
of getting more stuff.
Right, exactly. I've been really I've been struggling with that when I've been on tour, and you see these people and they're like angry and they want more. Everyone wants more. And it's like, just be happy with what you got. Like the simple things, like turning back to just like the simple life of you got the guy across the street and you got your little bar that you go to and you got your little shop that you get your things, and that should be enough.
It's funny you say that, because one of the tools for happiness is gratitude. And I don't know how much you've read about this, but you know, the studies are phenomenal. Gratitude is like the magic pill of all time.
Right.
Like people who practice gratitude are happier, and then they're healthier. They're also more well-liked. They exercise more because they like themselves more. So they
Right.
become healthier. They get promoted more at work.
Right.
They sleep better.
Yeah.
Like all of the stuff, the fallout that comes from practicing gratitude, which is exactly what you're talking about. Like, as opposed to, I am lacking stuff and I want more stuff. It's like, I'm so happy with what I have. I'm grateful for what I have.
This is enough.
And then that allows us to feel increased well-being.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right, one last question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Okay.
Who does the cooking in your house?
It's embarrassing.
No one.
No.
You don't cook? Your wife doesn't cook?
We have a part-time house cleaner, and she'll cook us like trays of enchiladas and like some salads and put them in, and she'll buy a chicken from Costco.
Really?
And we're just like, yeah, and then we'll order out from a couple places through the week. We're neither of us cook. We
That's
just,
so funny.
No bread. This is why. This is going to be so well.
That's good.
Put to use.
Oh, I'm glad. I would have brought you
Trust me.
2 loaves if I knew you guys were so hungry.
Yeah. You got any other food around here?
Can you want me to take some of your avocados back?
Maybe I will.
That's why you gave them to us. You don't know what to do with them.
Guacamole I know how to do. Do I still make it? No, but
No, because it's going to take onions and tomatoes. We don't have those.
Yeah.
Is your refrigerator empty?
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
You know, we're non-cooks, me and my wife. But,
Oh, that's funny.
We get by. Do you like to
That's
cook
great.
a lot?
I love to cook. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it feels like it's just a colossal waste of time. It's like, I don't understand it. Like, you're like, oh, I'm slicing this garlic, each one so thin, and the Roma tomato, I've got that boiling. And then, an hour and 5 minutes later, you've made this wonderful dinner, and then everyone eats it in like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're pooping it out the next day. Where did that hour go?
And then you have to clean it. You didn't even get that part.
You could have been practicing bassoon. You could have learned American Sign Language or,
Yes,
Italian.
but I wouldn't have given you this bread. And then you're going to take this bread home, and you're going to take a nice serrated knife. You probably don't have a right.
I do have
you
a nice
do?
serrated knife.
All right, good.
Yeah.
And then that'll be a good
I
feeling.
have all the
and then we've
accoutrements.
shared.
Yeah. I have like the nice stove and the pots and the stuff. We just don't use them very much. So.
All right. Well, I'll bring you more bread next time.
That would be great. Yeah.
You're great.
This was so nice talking to you. This was a very serious conversation.
It was
I feel
in
bad.
and out.
I feel like I let the listener down because I wasn't very funny.
No, you know what?
I'm not feeling very funny these days.
You made me laugh.
Okay, good.
And you know what? I think the stuff we talked about is stuff people would want to hear.
I hope so.
Yeah, I was interested.
I told you religion is a comedy killer, but you went there.
It was great. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's why we're here, is to connect with people.
Yeah.
And
have an elevated discussion.
Yeah, just
about the human experience. And sometimes that's funny, and sometimes it's not as funny.
You know what I'm going to say this was? You know what I'm going to call this episode?
What's that?
Blissful. What else you got going on?
I have a podcast of my own.
Oh.
Tom, and I'm really excited about it. It's called Metaphysical Milkshake.
Nice.
And it's very much in line with what we've been talking about. It's about life's big questions and ideas, philosophical, spiritual, psychological, artistic, sociological. We interview authors, but comedians as well, and really interesting folks. And we kind of dig into some really deep topics.
That's perfect.
With my co-host Reza Aslan, who's a writer and provocateur, and we've had Malcolm Gladwell on the show, but
that's
we
great.
also have stand-up comics and weird artists and musicians, and
it's right up my alley.
you check it out. Metaphysical
What's it called
Milkshake.
again?
Metaphysical Milkshake.
All right. And your production company was called something Pancake.
Soul Pancake.
Soul Pancake.
Soul Pancake.
And yet you don't cook.
And I don't. A lot of food items. Yeah, and I don't cook. So.
Oh, that's cool. And it's how many have you done so far?
We've done like 50 so far.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've gone for over a year.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I love this. I love when I can get a new one.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
It's super fun.
Very cool.
Thanks.
You're the best.
You're the best.
Got it, Aaron. All right, everybody. That was our big conversation with Rainn Wilson. I told you he was a special character. Thank you so much for participating in this podcast. Keep all the love coming. Keep coming out to the shows. Go to tompapa.com. I will be in Las Vegas this Friday, May 6th. A big show in Las Vegas. Tickets still available. And the rest of the tour rolls on from there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.